Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into the windswept, frost-crusted world of the Vikings, not through long ships or battles or buried treasure, but through something a little more personal. Your hair. Yes, yours. The greasy, tangled, barely brushed mop you've got going on. Not going to cut it in this world. Imagine this. You wake up on a wooden cot covered with a fur that smells faintly of smoked fish and old campfire. There's a chill in the air and the sound of waves outside. You sit up, rub your eyes, and immediately reach for your comb. Not just because you want to look good, but because in the Viking world, how you wear your hair might just keep you alive. Or get you killed. You probably won't survive this. Because today, we're not just surviving battle, we're surviving judgment, and everyone is watching your scalp. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You run your fingers through your hair. It's thick, a little wild, and slightly damp from sleeping so close to the sea. You reach for your bone comb, the one carved with knotwork symbols passed down from your older brother. It's worn smooth from years of use. Notched at the end for scraping away lice because even mighty warriors have to deal with bugs. You start your morning routine. Not in front of a mirror, but beside a water basin carved from driftwood. The water's cold, bracing. You dip your comb rake it through your hair and start separating it into the braids of the rating class, tight-layered, deliberate. You're not just doing this for vanity. You're doing it because people are watching. The warriors in your clan wear their hair in specific patterns, tight plaits to keep it from flying into their eyes during combat, but also to signal rank. Your braid style shows you're not a slave. You're not a farmer. You're not a wanderer. You are one of them. One wrong parting, and someone might think you're pretending to be more than you are. And in Viking society, that might cost you a tooth, or a hand, or worse. Historians still argue whether there were formal codified styles per village or clan, or if this was more of an unspoken cultural code passed by imitation. What we do know is they noticed, and they judged. You tie off the braid with a leather cord, check the knot, and adjust the angle of your mustache. Not too curled. You don't want to look like a show-off. Just enough flair to say, I take care of myself, and I might set your house on fire. Now for the sides. Do you shave them today? It depends. You're not raiding. But you're also not hiding in a field tending cabbage. You opt for a quick trim with a scraper blade, a tool somewhere between a knife and a straight razor. No soap. Just a splash of cold water and guts. You scrape the side of your head slowly, carefully. You wince once, nicking the skin behind your ear. Nothing fatal. You dab it with a cloth and keep going. This style, shaved sides, long top braided back, tells others you're ready. Even if there's no battle today, you're keeping up appearances. No one wants to look unprepared when the gods might call you to die before dinner. Nearby, your cousin emerges from his hut. His hair's a disaster. Half-braided, crusted with what looks like porridge. He yawns. Going to look like that in front of the Jarl, you mutter. He shrugs, not planning to challenge anyone. You shake your head. You never plan to. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Because in your world, the wrong look can be read as arrogance, or disrespect, or weakness. It's not like today's social media where someone might post a passive-aggressive comment. Here they'll walk across the camp and demand you answer for your braid. In fact, the Hairbrush saga, an old Icelandic tale, tells of men being mocked and even fought over their grooming. It's not a stretch. Hair in this world is identity, lineage, and armor. You finish your braid, tighten the knot at the base, and splash your face with the last of the water. The sun's creeping over the mountains now, casting long streaks of orange across the fjord. You step out of your hut, leather boots crunching frost-covered grass. A group gathers near the longhouse. You walk toward them slowly, your hair sharp, your beard tied to your shoulders squared, not just from confidence, but from centuries of unspoken rule. Look like you belong, or risk proving you don't. Someone glances at you as you arrive, They nod. You nod back. And just like that, you survive the morning. The longhouse smells like smoke and dried fish, warm air, thick with breath and pine resin. You duck beneath the timber frame boots thudding softly against the packed earth floor. Your breath fogs the space in front of you as you enter not from cold, but from anticipation. The others are already gathered, seated or standing, braided and armed. Some sip broth, others mutter low greetings. One man sharpens a blade, the rasp of metal on stone slicing the morning quiet. You walk with purpose because that's what's expected. You've dressed the part, your braid tight your sides. Clean your beard, not too proud. But none of that matters if you don't carry it. And everyone here knows it. You slide onto a bench beside a younger man whose beard is only halfway there. His hair is combed neatly, but a single strand dangles over his eye. You stare at it. He notices. Slowly, sheepishly, he tucks it back behind his ear. Good choice, because in this place, details mean everything. Across the hall, a chieftain's son speaks. His words are strong, but it's not his voice people are looking at. It's his head. His braids are wrapped with thin copper wire, a sign of both wealth and intent. This is someone about to take a sea journey. The adornment says so even before he opens his mouth. And so begins the morning judgment, the unspoken assessment that occurs every time a group gathers in Viking society. Not just posture, not just speech, but hair. Always hair. Your own is modest, intentional. You didn't come to make a claim today, but you looked ready, and that's enough. You sit quietly eating cold stew with flatbread. You nod when spoken to. You laugh once lightly. You notice that someone else, a man 2 benches over, has a twisted braid, an odd style often associated with traders from the south. He catches your eye, holds your gaze, and you both know. It's not his native braid. It's borrowed, copied, risky. Historians still argue whether certain hairstyles were strictly forbidden to wear outside your rank or region, or if mimicry was simply dangerous because of how it could be misread. Either way, in your world, imitation is a gamble. Because hair doesn't just signal your role, it can provoke bloodshed. You finish your stew and stand. Outside, the morning brightens into something harsh. Cold wind bites across your face as you step into the clearing beyond the longhouse. Today's duties include boar patrol because something's been rooting through the outer fields and scaring the livestock. You're sent with 2 others, neither of whom you know well. But their braids are honest. Clean. No metal, no dyed string. Not claiming what they haven't earned. You respect that. You trudge through frost-covered grass into the forest, your boots sinking slightly with each step. The trees are bare this time of year, their branches like the ribs of old ships. The cold numbs your fingers, but your braid holds tightly bound, wrapped in oiled twine. You check it instinctively, like checking your knife, because you never know. And out here in the trees, appearances still matter. One of your companions speaks softly. You know what happened to Osvif's boy? You shake your head. They say he tried to wear his uncle's braids. Went to the thing with them. Claimed kinship he hadn't earned. You raise an eyebrow. And they cut off his hair. Publicly. He grimaces. Left him with just the top knot. Said he could grow the rest back when he learned what it meant. You don't respond. You just glance toward the trees. Because that's the thing about Viking law, it's not always written, but it's always remembered. You find signs of the boar, overturned soil, broken bark. The trail is fresh, and your group begins to circle wide, flanking the trees like an old tactic in new clothes. You feel your braid shift slightly in the wind. You tighten the wrap. Because the truth is, you feel different when your hair is right. You feel focused, armored, seen. And not just by your fellow patrol members, by the gods. Yes, the gods are watching too. Odin, whose beard is legend. Thor, whose mane crackled with power. Freya, whose golden hair shimmered with death and prophecy. You walk through the woods carrying a piece of that legacy woven quite literally into your scalp. Some say warriors wove protection runes into their braids, whispered charms as they wrapped each strand. Some say cutting your hair before battle was bad luck. Others claimed it was required. Historians still argue whether pre-battle hair rituals were based in magic military strategy or just good grooming. In your world, it's all three. The boar never appears. Maybe it sensed you coming. You return to camp as the sky darkens with clouds. A light drizzle begins. You shake water from your shoulders and duck into your hut. Inside you rebraid, quietly, methodically. Not because it's messy, but because the act itself calms you. You untie the old wrap, loosen the plaits, and start again. Fingers finding the rhythm. Leather thongs wet with rain. The scent of pine oil clinging to your fingertips. When you finish, the braid is tighter, cleaner, and you're more yourself again. Outside, someone calls for the evening fire. You step out once more, face stinging with cold hair perfect and beard kissed with frost. And no one needs to ask how the day went. They just look at your braid and know. The next morning you wake to the sound of rain tapping gently against the wooden roof beams. A soft rhythm, not urgent, not angry, just steady like the world exhaling after a long night. You blink awake under your wool blanket, your braid still intact, though slightly frayed at the edges. Kish, the village dog, not yours, but practically everyone's, noses at your door and huffs as if to say, "Another day. Let's go." You rise, stretch, and wash your face in the cold basin. Your fingers hesitate at your scalp. It's cleaning day. You sit cross-legged on the floor, open your small grooming pouch, and take out your tool's bone-combed sliver of soap root, a vial of lavender and bear fat mixed into a kind of oily paste. You press your fingers into it, rub it through your scalp, and begin to comb. 1 stroke, then 2, then 10. It doesn't hurt as much as it used to, not since you started doing it daily. And no, this isn't about vanity. In the Viking world, clean hair is a sign of discipline, of readiness. You aren't a king, you're not a berserker, but you are someone who takes care of themselves, and people notice, even enemies, especially enemies. You remember once during a feast a traveler from a neighboring fjord showed up, hair-matted beard tangled, smelling like dead trout and desperation. The Jarl didn't even greet him. He let him eat, yes, but he didn't speak a word, because unkempt meant untrustworthy. Historians still argue how much grooming mattered in day-to-day life versus ceremonial occasions. But in practice, the consensus is clear: the Vikings cared. A lot. You finish with your braid this time, adding a thin leather cord rubbed with birch tar. Part scent, part insect repellent, part swagger. You don't wear jewelry. You wear this. Outside, you hear your neighbor struggling with a cart. You step out to help. His name is Skjold, and his beard is longer than your arm. He ties it in a thick twist down the center, a style associated with northern war families. Whether or not he actually fought is unclear, but the beard makes him untouchable. People assume he's earned it. You grunt a greeting, lift the back of the cart, and the two of you haul it over the mud rut together. "Rain smells like spring," he says. You nod. So does your beard. He laughs. Later, you sit by the communal fire pit, letting your hair dry in the breeze. You run your fingers through it, checking for tangles. Another villager, Svala, is plucking herbs nearby. Her hair is pinned back with what looks like a sharpened antler tine, decorative, yes, but also functional. You've seen her draw it like a dagger once. The Vikings, after all, believed in multitasking accessories. A comb could have a blade tucked inside. A braid pin could double as a lockpick. Some claim the longer your braid, the more tools you could hide in it. A merchant once told you about a woman in Hedeby who braided silver coins into her hair, each one wrapped tightly in cloth and knotted beneath layers. If you didn't know, you'd think it was decoration. If you did, you'd know it was a portable bank and a signal, "Don't mess with me. I am valuable and armed with metal." You wonder briefly if you could do something like that. You reach into your pouch and finger your only coin. Too heavy. Too obvious. You'll stick to leather for now. That afternoon, the rain thickens. You take shelter under the overhang near the grain shed, watching the sky darken into a full gray blanket. Two boys race past, their braids undone and flapping wildly. One slips in the mud and lands flat on his back. A woman scolds them from the porch, shaking her head. "They'll catch cold," she mutters. "And they look like goats." You grin. The weather traps you in place, so you pass the time oiling your comb. It's simple, carved from horn, etched with worn knotwork. You've used it every day since your father gave it to you. You remember the day he taught you to braid. Not a long lecture. Just a quiet moment by the fire, his thick fingers moving slowly through your hair. No words. Just rhythm. And now, here you are doing the same for yourself, maybe better, maybe worse. But always remembering that a braid is a line back through time. Historians still debate whether braiding styles were passed through families or taught communally. But for you, it was both. Your village has rules, yes, but also choices. You wear what your people wore because it means belonging, because it tells the world, this is who I come from. The rain finally lightens. You walk home as the sky fades into purple dusk. Inside your hut, you strip off your damp tunic, hang it near the hearth, and light a small oil lamp. The shadows flicker across the walls. You sit and untie your braid. Slowly, gently. Your fingers are careful now, respectful. Because this act, too, is part of the ritual. You check for knots, for dirt, for broken strands. You smooth the hair with the back of your comb. Then rebraid, not for the village, not for the clan. For you. Tight. Clean. Controlled. The room grows quiet. Outside, the last of the raindrops fall like whispers. You lean back, and you think not of battles, not of glory, but of how much has been said without a single word. You rise before the sun because today is not an ordinary day. You can feel it in your chest, tight, buzzing alert. A gathering has been called by the Jarl, and that usually means one of three things: a dispute, a ceremony, or an announcement that sends people to sea. Whatever it is, you're not going without your braid tight. You sit on your mat in the half-light, the room still cool and blue. You comb out the sleep from your hair fingers, working carefully. You redo the plaits, tugging them tighter, winding them lower toward the nape of your neck. You don't decorate it today. Simplicity is strength. You tie it with a strip of rawhide and tuck the end so it rests neat against your shoulder. It's a style that says, I'm ready, but I'm listening. Across the village, others are doing the same. Braiding, tying, washing, sharpening, preparing. No one knows what the Jarl will say, but everyone knows how to show up for it. Hair first, then words. As you walk across the compound, you pass an older woman leaning over a water basin. Her long silver braid is coiled into a knot at the crown of her head, a sign of matriarchal status. No one speaks to her unless she speaks first. Her presence alone can silence a group. You nod. She does not nod back, but she sees you. And in your world, that's enough. You join the crowd outside the longhouse. The air smells like pine tar and damp leather. Above you, gulls circle the rooftops, watching as humans gather like herds. The crowd is full of stories if you know how to read them. One boy has crooked braids, rushed and uneven. Probably tied them himself, too nervous to ask for help. Another man has layered braids tied with blue-dyed wool, a subtle signal that he's part of a sea-bound crew. You spot a woman with her hair twisted into a spiral, the end tucked beneath a cloak pin, likely mourning. You don't stare. Then the Jarl steps out. His hair is shoulder-length and streaked with iron gray. It's been oiled, brushed, and left loose, an intentional choice. Only a Jarl can afford to wear his hair undone at a gathering. It says, I have no one to impress and nothing to prove. Everyone falls silent. He begins to speak. There's a dispute, land stolen between two clans. He names the offenders. One man's name is met with a sharp intake of breath. You glance toward him. His braid is frayed, untied, falling in pieces around his shoulders. It's not an accident. In your world, to arrive unbraided is a statement, a rejection of protocol, a form of protest, or sometimes a surrender. The man does not speak. He just stands, head high, hair loose, like he's already accepted whatever comes. The Jarl doesn't raise his voice. He simply says he'll be heard. Then the matter moves on. Afterward, as the crowd disperses, a man from the next village approaches you. He wears a circular twist at his crown, a style you haven't seen before. You nod politely. Never seen a leather-wrapped braid like that, he says. You shrug. It holds. He smirks. Looks like you care too much. You meet his eyes, and you don't care enough. You don't say it loud. Just firm enough that he knows the line has been drawn. He chuckles and walks off, but he doesn't turn his back on you. Historians still debate whether hairstyle protocol was regionally enforced or clan-based, but they agree on one thing. Style was status, and status was fragile. You return to your hut that afternoon and untie your braid again. You think of that man, the one who stood with his hair loose before the Jarl, and wonder if he felt afraid, or if perhaps he felt free. You run your comb through your hair again. There's something soothing about the rhythm of it. Not just the grooming, but the care, the quiet power of deciding how the world will see you before you say a single word. You look down at the comb. It's worn smooth now, the symbols barely visible. Once you heard of a man who had his comb buried with him wrapped in cloth, placed in his hand, not because it was valuable, but because it was his. Because it knew him. You understand that now. Outside, the light fades. You set your tools aside. Your braid is already done. Not for show, not for battle, for yourself. Because sometimes you don't tie it to impress others. You tie it to remember who you are. You wake to the scent of smoke and wet moss. The wind has shifted. It carries the cold bite of something older than weather, a whisper of winter, a hint that soon the fjords will freeze, and with them the world will go quiet. But not yet. Today, you prepare for the ritual of the beard. Yes, beard. Because if you think Viking hair was a social signal, the beard was a banner, a living tapestry of strength, honor, age, wisdom, and occasionally pure arrogance. You sit cross-legged by the fire, slowly oiling your beard with a mixture of tallow and crushed juniper. The scent is strong, sharp. You work it in with your fingertips, combing gently downward. Not too fast, not too hard. This is not about taming it. It's about shaping it, declaring who you are without opening your mouth. Yours is medium length, forked at the end, tied just loosely enough to move when you turn your head. It's a practical choice. You've seen men wear theirs in triple braids down to the chest, each bound in silver rings. Impressive, yes. But one slip in battle and those braids become handles for your enemies. You once saw a duel end because a man's beard caught fire. Not metaphorically. He leaned too close to a torch. It was over in seconds. You chuckled to yourself, finished tying the ends of your beard, and wiped the oil from your hands with a strip of old linen. Outside, the village is busy. A feast is being prepared in honor of an elder returning from a sea voyage one thought to be lost. His ship reappeared yesterday, crew half what it left with sails ragged, but him standing proud at the bow, beard untouched. Word is he never cut it. Not once. For 15 moons. Historians still argue whether these long-beard vows were common or more symbolic. Some sources claim warriors swore not to shave until vengeance was taken. Others say it was a ritual of mourning loyalty or transformation. In truth, it could be all of them. Sometimes the beard tells a story your mouth never will. You walk to the longhouse, wind tugging at your coat braid still tight against your back. Kish trots beside you, ever loyal, ever unimpressed. As you pass others, you nod. You observe. One man wears a freshly cropped chin stubble, just beginning to reclaim the territory. A statement. Something has ended. A conflict. A vow, maybe a loss. Another man's beard is dyed with ash, streaked like war paint. He does this before every feast. Not to look fierce, he says it's to honor the dead. But you know he also enjoys the attention. You reach the longhouse and step inside. The elder is seated near the fire, wrapped in a heavy cloak, eyes scanning every face. His beard is magnificent, twisted into a thick single braid bound with copper wire and a piece of polished driftwood. He does not speak. He doesn't need to. Everyone's already listening. You kneel beside the others, quiet watching as offerings are placed at his feet, breadfish herbs, and of course a comb. A new one, carved from elk horn. A gift of respect. You understand the symbolism. After all he's endured, after the salt and wind and loss, he kept his braid. You glance down at your own. Still tight. Still true. Later, as the feast begins, people trade stories. You sit near the fire, warming your hands, beard still damp from melted snow. Someone passes you a carved cup of mead. You sip. It's sweet, spiced, strong. Across from you, a younger man speaks nervously about his first voyage next season. His hands shake slightly as he cups his bowl. He asks, "Should I cut it before we leave?" Someone laughs. Another shrugs. You just say, "If you're going to make a promise, keep it with your hands and your face." He looks confused. You'll understand once you sail, because that's the thing. You don't wear a Viking beard for comfort. You wear it for the vow, for the memory, for the gods, and for the story you'll tell if you make it home. Historians may never agree on the exact rituals, the meaning of the forked beard, the ash dye, the copper ties. But you know, you've lived it. You sit back, sip your mead, and run your fingers down the length of your braid. The firelight dances across the room. Laughter rises. Outside, the wind howls like a distant horn. Somewhere out at sea, a boat probably tips toward the horizon, its crew unaware that back home, someone's already plating their name into silence. You close your eyes, beard warm against your chest, and let the night settle. Not because you're done, but because the braid will hold until morning. Because now you understand this isn't just for grooming. It's a weapon against forgetting. You spend the morning carving, slowly, carefully. Each groove, each line tells a story. You etch the old family knotwork into one side your clan's symbol, then a wave pattern to honor the sea, and on the handle, a small notch for each winter survived. The feast lingers late into the night, but you slip away early. Too much noise. Too many stories retold in louder voices. Too much smoke clinging to your braid. You walk back through the quiet village, under a crescent moon, your boots brushing frost from the grass. Kish trots at your heels, ever faithful, ever silent. Back in your hut, the fire is just embers. You strip off your outer cloak, loosen your belt, and sit near the hearth to rebraid. Not because it's undone, but because tonight deserves a fresh start. A ritual cut. You draw your knife, a short blade bone-handled, rarely used except for food and grooming, and bring it to the end of your braid. Just a trim. The last 2 inches are frayed, knotted, and weathered from sea air and firelight. You pinch them between 2 fingers, hold your breath, and slice. Clean. You drop the end into the fire. A curl of smoke rises rich and faintly sweet. And just like that, you let go of something. You sit still for a long time after that, listening to the crackle, the breathing of your dog, the wind against the wall. You wake the next morning to the sound of something unexpected, a comb falling. You'd left it on the ledge, and now it lies on the ground, teeth up like a warning or a sign. You pick it up, run your thumb along the notches. A few teeth are broken now, nothing fatal, just age. Still, it makes you think. In Viking society, combs weren't just tools. They were personal items carried everywhere, tucked into belts, sewn into pouches, hung from the neck like charms. Some even had names passed from father to son. You decide it's time to carve a new one. You take out your tools, a small flint chisel, a strip of reindeer bone, a piece of charcoal for sketching the design. You sit at your table, tracing the outline with your fingertip. Longer handle this time, a tighter grip, maybe a hole at the end for threading cord through so you can wear it around your neck. You pause. You count them. 10. It feels like more. By midday, the comb is done. It's rough, imperfect, and utterly yours. You set aside the old one not to discard, but to bury later. Under the tree near the water. The place where you left your brother's drinking horn after he didn't return from his last raid. Historians still argue whether combs were buried for symbolic closure or simply discarded as worn tools. But to you, it's both. It's a way to mark time, a way to say goodbye without saying it out loud. You spend the afternoon weaving. Not cloth, not rope, but hair. Svala, the woman with the antler pin, has asked for your help. She's preparing for her sister's naming ceremony, a new child born into the clan. As is tradition, a lock of hair from each elder will be woven into a cord that's tied around the infant's wrist during the ceremony. You sit across from her, combing and braiding, gently folding each fine strand into the growing braid. Some are gray, some still gold. One strand is red and coiled like a snake. You don't ask whose it is. She doesn't say, but you both know. This act, the quiet, steady, almost meditative process, is older than the sagas. It's not in any runestone or law code, but it binds people tighter than ink. You finish the cord, tie it off with a simple knot, and hand it to her. She thanks you with her eyes, not her mouth. You walk home slowly. The village glows with low firelight, every house flickering like a heartbeat. Someone plays a flute. Someone else sings softly in a language you barely remember, older than yours, borrowed from another shore. You step into your hut, hang your new comb on a nail above your bed, and run your fingers through your beard, still forked, still tight. But now it feels lighter. Not because it's shorter, but because it means something again. You lie down, Kish curling up beside you, and just before your eyes close, you think tomorrow someone else will cut a braid, or bury a comb, or tie a lock of hair into a knot they'll never undo. And in doing so, they'll say, "I was here." The morning begins not with a knock, but with a call, high-pitched, sharp, unmistakable, the horn from the watchpost at the edge of the village. You sit up instantly. Kish is already at the door, ears forward, tail still. You don't panic, not yet. This isn't the war horn. This one means visitors, travelers, strangers, possibly trouble, possibly trade. You reach for your cloak, then pause. Instinct kicks in. Hair first. Because in Viking society, when strangers arrive, your appearance speaks before your tongue. You sit down cross-legged and reach for your comb. It's the new one, the one you carved. Still smooth, still a little unfinished, but already stained with oil and fingerprints. You begin to untie your braid fingers, quick but careful. You won't be caught messy. You think of the stories of entire disputes started not over land or livestock, but over a man showing up with the wrong braid in the wrong village. So today you play it safe. A tight side braid wrapped into a double loop at the base of the neck. Practical, clean, unprovocative. It says, "I am local, I am alert, but I am not claiming anything that isn't mine." You oil the beard too lightly. No decoration, a quick twist at the end to keep it controlled. The kind of look you'd want if you had to smile and also draw a knife. You step outside. The village is already gathering. People standing along the paths, forming the half-circle that all humans seem to naturally arrange when waiting for something unfamiliar. You join them. Soon they appear. 3 travelers on foot, cloaks soaked from river mist. One carries a staff. One carries a pack. One wears a complex braid wrapped into a topknot bound with red thread. The shape alone identifies him as not from here. You narrow your eyes. It's a southern style, maybe from near Ribe. Not common in your region. Deliberate, specific, and slightly dangerous if worn wrong. Because that kind of braid says, "I am trained." It says, "I've seen blood." It says, "Don't mistake me for a merchant." Historians still argue about the extent to which Viking hairstyles signaled martial experience, but oral traditions are filled with references to braid marks or knot crests unique to certain clans or fighting bands. Some even suggest that raiding crews had signature hair patterns like modern military insignia. You believe it, because you're seeing it now. The Jarl approaches and speaks with the travelers quietly. The man with the red thread braid stays silent, eyes scanning the crowd. You keep your posture relaxed, your arms down, your gaze calm. This is the part where everything is performance. Kish growls softly beside you. You tap his side once. Easy. The conversation ends. The Jarl gestures and the travelers are led toward the longhouse. The red thread man glances your way as he passes. Not long, just long enough to register you. Your braid, your beard, your stance. A nod so small most would miss it. But you don't. You return to your hut afterward and sit by the fire, still half watching the door. You run a hand down your beard and feel a stray knot near the bottom. You untangle it slowly. Because even now, especially now, you understand your grooming is armor. Not vanity, not ritual, not fluff, signal, strategy, shield. Later that afternoon, word spreads. The travelers are seeking passage north up the coast past your fjord toward the territories where ice grips the shore, and every meeting is a coin toss. There's talk of raiders nearby, outsiders unaligned with any known clan. No one knows their styles. No one's seen their braids, which in your world is like saying they have no faces. That night the Jarl calls a meeting. You sit near the fire again, the same place you've always sat. This time the red thread man sits nearby. You nod. He nods back. He speaks first. Your braid, it's yours. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Most of them here wear what they're told. You wear what you've earned. You don't respond, but inside you feel something stir. Something like pride. Something like being seen. Later, outside the longhouse, he catches you again. He unties a small piece of cord from his wrist, red-dyed wool frayed at one end, and offers it. Add it to yours, he says. If you go north, you take it. Not for the color, not for the message, but because someone just handed you a story. You return to your hut and sit before the fire again. You don't sleep right away. You braid. And at the very end of your fresh plait, you tie in the red thread. Just one loop. Just enough. You look at yourself in the reflection of your drinking bowl. Still you. But now slightly more dangerous. The next morning comes with a sky the color of old iron and a wind that smells like salt and wood smoke. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, step outside and tug your braid instinctively. Still tight, still coiled, still yours with a single loop of red thread near the end, now stiff from the damp. Kish follows behind, nose low, tail up. He can sense it too. Something's shifting. The red-threaded traveler is still here. You see him speaking with the Jarl's second son near the stockade. Their posture isn't hostile, but it's not casual either. You can't hear what they're saying, but their hands are doing a lot of the talking, sharp gestures, small circles. It's the kind of discussion warriors have when plans are on the table but trust isn't. Later, as you chop wood near the edge of the village, he approaches you. North winds are strong, he says. You nod. They usually are. He crouches beside the stump, glancing at your axe, then at your face. I saw you tie the thread in. You don't answer right away. You toss another log onto the pile. It's not a pledge, you finally say. Not yet. He grins. It's a question then. You shrug. Maybe. And in Viking culture, maybe is just the polite way of saying I'm watching you. He stands. There's a ritual tonight. For protection. If you're going to sail or thinking about it, you should come. You know what he's talking about. Hair rites. The kind not done for appearance or pride or signaling, but for magic. Historians still debate whether Vikings believed in actual braid-based enchantments or if the rituals were purely symbolic. But sagas reference protective knots, dream braiding, and even curse weaving through hair. You've never seen one up close. You agree to go. That night, a small group gathers at the stone circle just beyond the forest line, too far for casual eyes, close enough to return quickly if the weather turns. They arrive slowly. A woman with gray streaks in her hair carries a bowl of ash and pine resin. Two young warriors hold torches, and there at the center of the ring stands the red-threaded traveler. He's stripped down to his under-tunic, braid, unbound comb in hand. You sit in the outer circle watching. The ritual begins without speaking. The woman, clearly a seeress, steps forward, dips her fingers in the ash, and begins combing it into his hair. Slow, rhythmic. Her hands never falter. You expect chanting. You expect something loud, ceremonial. But it's almost silent. Just comb ash braid, comb ash braid. You feel it, this strange sense that something is being woven that isn't just hair, a net of intentions of memory of warning. When she finishes, she binds his braid with 3 cords, black, white, red. Then she steps back, and he ties it himself. No one claps, no one speaks. He simply nods once. It's done. Afterward, the fire is extinguished, and the group disperses into the trees like mist. You find yourself walking beside the traveler again. You believe it works, you ask. He glances sideways. Not like a shield, more like a direction. Magic, no, he says, but close enough when it matters. You walk in silence for a while. He breaks it. She said you have steady hands. You raise an eyebrow. She noticed your braid when you helped the old woman last month. Said you tied it like someone who listens. You hadn't known the seeress was watching. You hadn't known your braid was telling stories without permission. And now, you wonder what else it's been saying. Back at your hut, you sit by the fire again. The night is cold, but your hands are warm. You untie your braid slowly, fingers moving with intention. You don't have ash. You don't have pine resin, but you have memory. So you comb. You think of your brother who never made it back. You think of the red thread man and the silence of that circle. You think of the wind and what it takes from those who don't listen. You finish the braid in the same style she used, tight base 3-twist wrap single lock tucked beneath. You feel ridiculous, and then you feel calm, like the knot just closed something that had been flapping loose in your chest. You lie back. Kish curls at your feet. Outside, a cold gust pushes against the door, and you sleep with the quiet, private certainty that you've joined something. Not a crew, not a cause, but a conversation older than speech. Older. You wake to the sound of snow. Not falling exactly, but drifting soft against the roof, brushing past the shutters, dusting the world in a silence so complete it feels like the sky exhaled and forgot to breathe back in. Winter has arrived. You sit up slowly. Kish is a warm bundle against your side, twitching his paws in a dream chase. The hearth has gone cold. You wrap yourself in a thick cloak and light a new flame, coaxing warmth into the bones of your little world. And then, as always, you reach for your braid. Still tight. Still holding. Still whispering yesterday's stories down your back. But today, something is different. You pick up your new comb, and as you turn it in your fingers, you remember the old one. The broken teeth, the worn edge, the way it used to catch just slightly near the nape. You remember burying it beneath the cedar tree, and for a moment you wonder, what stories does it still remember even underground? Because in this world, even forgotten things keep talking. You begin your morning grooming with more care than usual. You're not going anywhere, not expecting anyone. But something in the stillness makes the act feel ceremonial. You rebraid your hair, looping the red thread once, then twice. You press the cord flat, tighten the final twist. Then you move to your beard. Today you try something different, a double fork, each end tied separately. You're not even sure why. Maybe because you saw it in a dream. Maybe because you want to know what it feels like to carry something that isn't yet you, but might be. Outside the village is quiet. Smoke curls from longhouse roofs. No drums, no horns, no shouting. Just the world holding its breath beneath a white sky. You walk to the communal hall anyway, boots crunching in fresh snow. The path is marked only by the tracks of dogs and the occasional scuffle of ravens. Inside the hall, a small group sits huddled near the fire, mostly elders speaking in slow, warm voices, sipping broth from carved cups. One of them nods as you enter. Snow like this always brings the stories out, she says. You nod, unwrapping your scarf and shaking snow from your braid. She notices it. Of course. Double fork, she murmurs. Haven't seen that since Olvir. You blink. Who, my son, she says. He wore it the winter he returned from across the sea. Said it helped him sleep without nightmares. You sit beside her, curious now. He said it made his face feel divided, like he could put grief in one side and hope in the other. She chuckles. Sounded mad, but he slept better. You smile, reaching up to touch the braid ends, suddenly aware of the weight they carry. Because it's true, hairstyles hold things. Grief, memory, power. There's a reason the law once said that to cut another person's hair without permission was grounds for blood feud. Yes, that's real. Historians know of Viking legal codes where cutting someone's hair was seen as physical assault, an act of shame, a public insult. In some cases, it was worse than theft. Because what you stole wasn't just hair. It was face, identity, standing. There's a story told in your village about a man who dared braid his hair in a jarl's style without permission. He was found his braid sliced from his head and nailed to the temple door. They say he lived, but no one looked at him the same again. You run your thumb along the leather tie at the end of your braid. You tied it yourself. You earned it. Every loop, every twist, every bead of oil. It's yours. And so long as it's tied, so are you. Later that day, the children gather in the square to build figures from snow and ice. Not just snowmen, snow warriors, snow gods, even a snow longship. One child tries to sculpt a braid on the head of her ice warrior. The result is lumpy and crooked, but she's proud. You kneel beside her and without speaking reshape it. 3 strands, twisted tight, held with a pebble tucked beneath. She beams. Like yours, she says. You nod. She doesn't know it yet, but someday that braid might save her, or mark her, or make someone fall in love with her without a word. Because Vikings didn't wear names on their backs. They wore them on their scalps. That evening, you sit by the fire with Kish beside you, the snow still falling outside, soft and endless. You untie your braid and let it fall loose for the first time in days. The heat from the flames warms the ends. The weight of the day slips free. And you wonder, if someone were to walk in now, what would they think? Would they see weakness? Would they see honesty, or just someone between stories? You run your fingers through your hair slowly, tenderly, not to style it, but to say, I remember. Snow still blankets the village by morning, but now it glows with that faint golden haze that says the clouds have pulled back, and the sun, however weak, is trying its best. You wake to the crisp sting of cold on your nose and the weight of something heavier than the furs across your chest. You dreamed last night, not of storms or battles, but of being shorn. You stood in a circle of strangers while someone walked behind you with a blade. Quiet. Ritual. The braid came off in one slow, sickening pull, and you felt nothing, just a strange lightness, and then the silence that followed. You sit up now and reach for your braid, still there, still tight, still you. But the dream lingers. You rise, splash cold water on your face, and tie your cloak. Today, you're heading to the edge of the village, to the weaving hall. A cousin of yours has asked for help carrying a bundle of wool to her mother's longhouse. Nothing heroic, nothing dangerous. But even in something as simple as this, you prepare. Your braid today is high coiled into a crown twist, a style traditionally worn by messengers or runners. Practical, wind resistant, and seen as a symbol of someone who moves between places. And it fits, doesn't it? Because today, you're not really here or there. Not just a villager, not just a fighter, just a man thinking about what would happen if someone took his braid away. You pass a boy in the square playing with a stick. He's tied straw into his hair like braids, pretending to be a jarl. He yells something about demanding tribute from the goats. You smile, but part of you winces. Because that sort of thing, wearing what you haven't earned, isn't always cute. In your grandfather's time, it could get you cut. Literally. There are stories in the sagas. A slave who dared wear his master's braid. A woman accused of sorcery because her hair matched the style of a seeress. A farmer who showed up to an assembly wearing a double crest, 2 braids knotted high on the crown, a signal that you were blood to royalty. They stripped him of it in front of everyone. Not just the braid, the dignity, the face. Because in your world, cutting someone's hair without permission is not just a personal insult. It's a public undoing. Historians have traced references to these customs in medieval law codes from Iceland and Norway. In some shaving, a man's head in public was ranked just below murder in severity, an act punishable by banishment or death, depending on who the braid belonged to. You arrive at the weaving hall. It's quiet, except for the steady thump of foot looms and the rustle of dyed wool. You find your cousin sitting cross-legged beside a pile of yarn the size of a small horse. She glances up. "I tied mine too tight today," she mutters, rubbing the side of her head. You sit beside her gesture for her to turn. Carefully, gently, you undo the knot. Even now it feels sacred to be asked to touch someone's braid. In your culture, it's not casual. It means something. You loosen the tension, rub her scalp with your thumb, then retie it simpler this time. A half braid tucked low, loose, but neat. "Better," she says. You nod and lift the wool bundle. As you carry it through the snow, you think again about the power tied into your own braid. You wonder what it would feel like not just to cut it, but to have it cut by someone else. To be shorn in punishment. To be made small not by blade or word, but by the sudden absence of the thing that made you visible. It's happened before. You remember the tale of Brynjar, the oath-breaker who fled battle and was dragged home. The Jarl didn't execute him. He cut off his braid, stripped him of his war tie in front of the village, burned it, and forbade him from growing it back. They say Brynjar lived another 20 years. No one ever spoke to him first again. Later that evening, the Jarl calls a small gathering. Not a feast, not a judgment. Something in between. The red thread traveler is there. So is the seeress. And at the center of it all, a young man, barely more than a boy, kneels with his braid undone laid across his lap. No one speaks for a long time. And then the seeress begins to braid, slowly, methodically, 3 strands drawn from separate bowls, one of ash, one of salt, one of blood. You recognize the ritual. This is a cleansing braid. Something went wrong. Some boundary was crossed. But the village hasn't cast him out. They've chosen to retie him, to rebuild him. And suddenly you realize not all braid cuts are shame. Some are forgiveness. Some are rebirth. Some are a way of saying you can begin again. That night, back in your hut, you sit quietly by the fire and comb out your own braid. You don't retie it. Not right away. You just let it hang loose, resting on your shoulder, like a soft question. And you wonder, what would it feel like if you had to start again? You wake with your hair still loose. It drapes across your shoulder like a heavy thought that followed you through sleep. For a moment, you don't move. You just lie there watching the way the light plays against the wall, flickering through the wooden slats of your roof. Kish nudges your leg with his nose. It's breakfast time. For him, everything is simple: food, warmth, loyalty. But for you, today feels uncertain. You sit up and comb your hair without thinking, the muscle memory kicking in. Stroke separate, gather, twist. But when it comes time to tie the braid, your hands pause. You remember last night, the boy, the 3 bowls, the slow, sacred rebuild of something that had almost been lost. So instead of rebraiding, you leave your hair down. You run your fingers through it once more, let it fall freely, and step outside like that, unbraided. It's a bold move. Not reckless, but not subtle either. Because in your world, being unbraided is never neutral. It means something. Sometimes grief, sometimes protest. Sometimes an unspoken "don't talk to me right now." Today it means openness, vulnerability, or maybe just I'm not sure yet. You head toward the riverside. You've been asked to join a hunting party, just 3 of you out to track elk or whatever else the gods have left behind in the snow. It's not a raid. It's not a war. But even these small moments are rituals. When you arrive at the meeting point, the other 2 are already there. One, a man with a battle braid so tight you wonder if he ever sleeps. the other a woman whose hair is wrapped in a headcloth, the ends of her braids tucked behind her neck. A sign of mourning, or perhaps just modesty. You don't ask. They notice your hair. Of course they do. The man nods, slowly curious. The woman tilts her head. No one speaks of it, but you feel the air around your shoulders shift, as if your absence of a braid has changed the weather. You move into the forest. The snow crunches beneath your boots, and the cold presses against your skin like a quiet dare. As you walk, the woman beside you finally speaks. Someone untie you. You shake your head. No. She pauses. Then why wear your thoughts like that? You glance at her. Because I don't have the words. She nods. And in Viking society, that's fair, because hair is speech. A braid can say I'm loyal. I'm in love. I'm going to war. I've returned home. And sometimes letting it fall says I'm still deciding. Historians often overlook these quiet codes, focusing on the battles and laws. But in the oral traditions, hair speaks often. It tells of oaths and betrayals, of hidden meanings in locks tied with ribbon or soaked in blood. There's even a tale of a woman who sent her brother's killer a braid she cut from her own head, short, jagged, and tied with black wool. It meant, I know what you did. I am not finished. You walk deeper into the woods. After an hour, you find the trail of a small herd. You crouch beside the tracks, fresh, wide-spaced. Elk. Maybe 3 or 4. Moving north. You signal silently, and the 3 of you begin the stalk. As you move, you notice how your loose hair catches the breeze, how it brushes against your neck, how you miss the steady pull of the braid's weight down your back. You feel less contained. It's not bad, but it's different. You track for hours through frost and brush until finally you spot one tall, alert ears twitching. The woman raises her bow, looses an arrow. It misses. The elk bolts, and that's the end of the hunt. There's no anger, just quiet. The 3 of you stand there in the snow, breathing hard, listening to the woods rearrange themselves in the silence after flight. Then slowly, the woman walks to a fallen log and sits. You follow. The man with the battle braid stays standing, watching, thinking, and then he speaks. I unbraided once. His voice is low. Not ashamed, not proud, just real. After a raid went bad. Lost half the crew. I tied it off that night, but in the morning I cut it. Sat on the beach, let it blow away. He shrugs. No one asked why. You nod. He doesn't look at you, but he adds, it grew back better. The woman chuckles. That's just age. You all laugh. It feels small and safe. Later, as you walk home, you feel your braid in your hand, not tied, just held. You don't loop it. You don't bind it. You just let it rest in your palm. Because today you've remembered that in Viking life, to untie is not always to unravel. Sometimes it's to loosen, to make room, to breathe. You reach your hut as the sky darkens, fingers cold, hair wild, and a faint smile on your face. And tonight, for the first time in days, you won't braid at all. The next morning you wake with your hair tangled across your cheek and a strange sense of peace in your chest. Kish is already up, sitting by the door, nose twitching. He's not anxious, just alert. You know that posture. Something's stirring outside. You sit up slowly and reach for your comb. But this time you don't start braiding. You just comb gently, patiently, drawing the strands out long and smooth. It's a rhythm now, a kind of meditation, and for the first time in days, you don't feel the pressure to define yourself with the way your hair is tied. You let it fall. Today you are unbraided by choice, not circumstance. And that, in your world, is a statement too. Outside, a gathering has formed near the edge of the village. Someone from the southern coast has arrived, riding a shaggy pony, leading a second horse loaded with crates and cloth. A merchant clearly, but not the kind that makes noise or waves arms. He stands calmly, wearing a plain wool cloak and a tightly twisted forelock braid knotted just above his left temple. You recognize the style. Bonded but free, a common marker among traveling craftsmen. It means I serve no jarl, but I keep my oaths. It also means I have things to trade. The merchant opens one of the crates and begins laying out goods: carved antler spoons, small blocks of soap clay cups glazed with ash and blue dye. But the crowd only gathers when he unwraps the final bundle: hairpins. Bone, bronze, wood. Some shaped like serpents, others like coiled wolves. One is just a smooth stick, unadorned but polished so fine it glows. People murmur, because hairpins are not just for keeping your braid in place. They're weapons, messages, gifts. You once heard of a woman who wore a hollow pin filled with ground blackthorn poison. She never had to use it, but no one touched her without asking again. Historians still debate whether these implements were mostly ceremonial or functional, but the sagas say otherwise. They tell of hidden blades of pins passed in secret, of love confessed by the type of wood used. You approach the merchant slowly, eyes scanning the display. You don't wear a braid today, but one of the pins. A dark ashwood needle carved with runes you can't quite read catches your attention. Not flashy, but balanced. You ask the price. He names something fair. You trade a smoked fish and a length of cord dyed in last season's berries. He nods. As he wraps it, he looks up at you. Your braid is missing. You smile. It's not gone, just waiting. He hands you the pin. Then let it wait with this. You take it, nod, and step back from the circle of people. That afternoon you go walking by the edge of the forest, Kish beside you, pin tucked into your sleeve. The trees are bare, their branches laced with snow, the paths hushed. You find a low rock and sit. And there in the stillness, you pull your hair forward over your shoulder. Not to braid. Not yet. You just hold it. You run the comb through one more time. Then you take the pin from your sleeve and slide it horizontally across the gathered strands like a bar holding them in place. It's not a style with a name, not a mark of allegiance, not a family signal or ritual knot. It's just yours. A holding pattern. A pause. A way to say, not today, but soon. Because in this culture, the absence of action is still action. You walk home slowly, the wind brushing past your ears, your hair held softly against your neck, secure and unbraided. Back at the village, you pass by two elders whispering by the longhouse. One glances at your hair, at the pin, then at your face. And she nods, not in judgment but in recognition. She's seen this pattern before. Someone between identities. Someone marking a turning. That night, you sit by the fire, gently oiling your hair. Not because you need to, but because it deserves to be cared for. Because this, too, is Viking power. Not the blade, not the beard, but the quiet choice to say, I will decide when I become myself again. Snow returns overnight, not a blizzard, but enough to soften the world, to smooth the lines between paths and rooftops and sky. You wake before the sun and light a small flame, the kind meant for quiet mornings. No tasks yet, no one calling your name, just the hush. You stretch and your hair falls forward, held in place by the single ashwood pin. Still there, still neat, still waiting. Kish yawns and pads toward the door. You don't rush. Today is a market day, though few will venture far in the snow. The village square will be quiet. A few traders, a few swaps of bread or tools, nothing grand. You tie your cloak and step out into the soft white. Your hair remains unbraided. And again you feel that quiet ripple in the air, how people glance, then look away. Some nod, some don't. And that's the tension of this phase, isn't it? You're not unkempt, but you're not fully aligned either. You're a question, and questions make people nervous. You pass the bread seller who eyes the pin in your hair. She offers a half loaf for a copper bead. You trade, and as you turn to leave, she says, You remind me of my brother. You stop. He wore his hair like that when he came back from raiding. Said he needed time before the braid returned, before he returned. You thank her, and walk on. At the far edge of the square, something new waits a scribe visiting from the inland hall. He sits behind a narrow table, scrolls rolled and tied with leather, a wooden stamp glinting near his hand. Name marks, he says. You pause. In Viking culture, not everyone has a name that travels. Many live and die with one known only by their village. But for those who trade raid swear oaths or carry news across territories, name marks are registered. Hair can say a lot, but official ink? That means something different. He asks, do you wish to inscribe a binding name? You look at him, then at the small circle of hair still held by your pin, and you say, not yet. He nods, not offended. Few ever say yes the first time. You step away, but the idea stays with you. A name that travels, a name that binds, a braid that means more than local whispers. That night you sit by the fire, slowly undoing the pin, letting your hair fall around your shoulders like a quiet storm cloud. You run your fingers through the strands and think, what would my name say if I were to carry it beyond here? What braid would match it? Because that's the other truth. Some styles were never meant for home. They were meant for open water, for the firelight of unfamiliar halls, for moments when you step forward and no one knows your father's name or your deeds or your failures, just the braid across your back and the way you hold your chin. There's a tale of a woman, Tora the Wanderer, who wore a high knot wrapped in iron thread. Not because she fought, but because she spoke for others. Her hair said, I carry burdens that aren't mine, and I do not drop them. She was welcomed in every jarl's hall, feared by every merchant who owed a debt. No one ever saw her unbraided. And you wonder what you'll become next. You hold the pin in your hand. You could tie it tonight. You could bind the braid again. You could signal that the question is closed. But instead you leave it loose one more night. Not because you're lost, but because you're listening. To yourself. To what comes next. And tomorrow you might tie it. Or you might cut it. Because in this world Viking life is never still. Even when the snow falls. Even when the fire burns low. Even when the braid is silent. It's always saying something. And you're just waiting for the words to match the thread. The sky is silver when you rise. Not bright. Not dark, just suspended like the day isn't quite ready to decide what it wants to be. You breathe in slowly. The air smells of damp wood and melted frost. Kish stretches beside you, tail flicking once, as if to say, well, let's get on with it. But before anything else, you sit. You comb. You don't rush. Your fingers glide through your hair, now soft from the oils, still faintly scented with smoke and pine. Today, you braid. Not tightly. Not in a war knot or crest twist. Not in anything that claims rank or power. You braid like you're building a path back to yourself. Simple, centered, clean. And you use the pin again, not as the braid's foundation, but tucked in at the end. Not functional. Symbolic. The pin now says, I passed through something and I brought something out with me. Then you rise and head toward the far end of the village. You've been asked to visit the old smith, the one who hasn't left her forge in weeks. The one who only speaks in mutters and smoke. She's been repairing spearheads, they say, but lately she's begun making rune combs again. You're not sure if you believe in those. They say some combs are carved with protective charms, symbols for memory-focused safety. Some say the very act of grooming with one clears your mind, binds your thoughts, even keeps dreams from tangling in your sleep. Historians debate whether these runes were taken seriously or just decorative. But then again, historians weren't raised in villages where dreams meant warnings and hair could carry more than lice. You reach the smith's hut just as she opens the shutters. Her hair is iron gray, cropped to the jaw, swept back with a strip of leather. Her braid is gone cut years ago after her son was taken by fever. She never tied it again, and yet she carves combs. You step inside the warmth wrapping around you instantly. The air smells of charred bone and metal filings. She looks at your braid, then the pin, then your eyes. I thought you'd come sooner, she says. You don't ask how she knows. She pulls a small bundle from a drawer wrapped in wool tied with twine. Inside is a comb, wider than yours, thicker, made of antler carved along the spine with runes that shimmer faintly even in the low light. You trace them with your thumb. She says it's not for you. Not yet. But it could be. You nod, not entirely sure what that means, but understanding anyway. Because some tools aren't just for today. They're for the next version of you, the one you're becoming. You leave without taking the comb. But she hands you a strip of cloth gray frayed warm from her hand. For the base of the braid, she says, keep the pin from slipping. You thank her. Outside, the wind is picked up. You wrap the cloth around the start of your braid and retuck the pin, feeling the knot settle tighter, more secure. You return to the square and pass a group of children mimicking warriors again. This time, one wears her hair in a seeress veil, a loose curtain over one eye plaited on the other side. Another boy wraps his scarf like a trader's tail braid knotted in the middle like he's hiding something. You smile. They're learning. They don't know they're speaking with their scalps, but they are. That evening, you return to the tree near the river, the one where you buried your first comb. The snow has melted just enough to reveal the small stone you placed as a marker. You kneel there, fingers brushing the earth. You don't dig. You just remember. Because that's the thing. Your braid now isn't just tied with cord. It's tied with silence, with seasons, with the space between endings and starts. You walk home through the half-light. Your braid swings gently behind you. You imagine what it looks like now to someone watching, not proud, not broken, not loud, but held, contained, honest. And maybe that's the power the old stories don't talk about. Not the strength to strike, but the strength to stay, to tie it again even after it's been cut, to say I'm still here. And when you lie down that night with Kish curled by your legs and the fire low and flickering, you reach back, touch the braid lightly. It's warm, and in that small warmth you sleep. Snow gives way to mud. Mud gives way to thaw. The days begin to stretch. You wake earlier now, not because anything calls you, but because the light does. A pale blue glow that filters through the thatch, nudging you out of sleep like a mother waking a child for chores. You sit up. Kish stirs, yawns, then flops his head dramatically back down. Today, you retie your braid, but not the old style. Not the simple path, nor the crown loop, nor the center twist. You try something new, a split braid looped once over the shoulder and tied together at the end like two voices meeting halfway. It doesn't mean anything. Yet. But it will. Because that's what styles become over time, meaning through memory. You add no pin today, no cord, just your hands, just the motion. You step outside into the soft melt of early spring. The village is slowly waking. Smoke curls from rooftops. Someone calls out for help lifting a roof beam. You wave, but you're heading in another direction, toward the seeress. She asked for you yesterday, just a word passed from child to elder, then elder to your door. No urgency, just, she wants to see your braid. That alone is enough to make you walk the long path before breakfast. You find her seated on a woven mat beneath a bare tree, her cloak drawn tight, her own hair pulled into a side veil revealing one ear and a narrow braid that loops 3 times around her shoulder like a coiled serpent. She sees you and smiles faintly, so she says, "You've named it." You blink, named what she points to your braid. That shape, that choice, that refusal to borrow. You hadn't realized it until now, but it's true. For weeks you've worn other people's meanings, morning braids, watch braids, red-threaded knots. Even your pin came from someone else. But this one is yours. She reaches out. "May I you kneel?" Her fingers move with surprising softness. She examines the shape, the tension, the direction of the twist. Then she hums. A braid with 2 voices, she says. It speaks of peace after contradiction. You wear your past and your future together. You look down. Is that good? She chuckles. It's rare. She lifts her own hair from her shoulder and shows you a tiny bead bone carved with a spiral tied near the root of the braid. This was given to me the day I chose to stop interpreting other people's dreams and start remembering my own. She offers you a similar bead from her pouch. It's plain, round, no mark, no story yet. You take it in both hands, grateful. Not just for the gift, but for the recognition. Because in your world, someone seeing your braid and understanding it, that's intimacy. That's being known without needing to explain. You tie the bead near the middle of your braid. Not at the top, not at the end. In the middle. A marker of this day, this woman, this version of yourself. Later, as you walk back to the village, you pass a group of men hauling timber. One of them, a boy barely old enough to hold a hammer, points at your hair and whispers to another. You hear the word knot splitter. You smile. They're giving it a name already. That evening, the red-threaded traveler appears again. You haven't seen him in days. His braid has changed shorter now, coiled tight against the base of his skull. He sees your new style and tilts his head. Nice, he says. Trying something. He nods. It suits you. Then he steps closer. I'm leaving soon. Going north finally. We've waited long enough. You don't say anything. He doesn't ask if you're coming. Because by now, he knows. You don't braid for anyone but yourself. If you go, it'll be because your braid says yes. Not your mouth, not your fists, not your name. That night you sit by the fire and remove the bead. You turn it slowly in your fingers, hold it to the light, trace its smoothness. Then you carve a mark into it. Nothing big, just a small, shallow split line down the center. 2 paths meeting. And then just above the mark you carve a dot. You place it back into your braid, and this time you tie it tight, not to hide, not to grieve, but to say this is who I became when no one was watching. You rise the next morning already feeling the weight of the decision before you've even opened your eyes. The red thread traveler is leaving today, north toward the coast, toward rougher waters, unspoken debts, and whatever purpose he's been braiding into his hair all these moons. You don't have to go. No one's asked you to. No one's waiting for your answer. But your braid, it's been speaking. It's been shaping itself into something between yes and not yet. You feel it resting down your back now, warm and alive. The bead at its center brushing gently against your shoulder blade like a fingertip. Kish watches you dress. His head tilts as if to ask, are we going or staying? You shrug. Let's see. You step outside into a dawn washed clean by spring rain. The ground is soft, the air wet and full of birdsong. A good day for travel. A good day for turning. You walk toward the river crossing where the travelers are gathering packs, loaded carts, creaking ropes, tightened boots checked. The red-threaded man stands near the back, his arms crossed, his braid shorter than before, but tight as ever. When he sees you, he doesn't smile, he just nods and waits. You reach him slowly, heart steady. Kish pads along behind, tail low, sniffing a saddlebag hopefully. I thought you might, the man says. You say nothing. Instead, you turn slightly and lift your braid over your shoulder. He studies it, the split pattern, the center bead, the tension of the knot, the absence of borrowed symbols, the presence of something new. He nods again, slower this time. Then he unties the red thread from his own braid and holds it out. A single loop, frayed on one end. Add it, he says, or don't. You take it. You look down at it in your palm. Then you tie it not into your braid but around your wrist. Because this journey, if it happens, will begin from your hands. Not your head, not tradition, not obligation. The caravan begins to move. You walk alongside, not quite in it, not quite separate. Kish trots just behind, tongue lolling. The first few miles are quiet, just the sound of feet in mud and creaking carts. No one speaks unless they have to. Everyone's braid tells their story already. There's a woman with a sun coil braid tight and wide across the back of her head, typical of those who've crossed oceans and returned. It says I left, and I came back. There's a man with a bare scalp, no braid, but a thick leather cord tied around his neck in place of one, possibly as a symbol of mourning for a lost brother, or perhaps an offering of silence. Historians sometimes miss these subtleties caught up in weapons and wars, but the stories that matter most aren't always shouted from rooftops. They're whispered from the scalp downward. You travel for 3 days, through thawing woods and mossy glades. Your braid holds, your hands learn, and on the 4th morning you reach the sea. It's gray, wide, shifting. The sound of it is endless. The caravan camps just beyond the dune line. Fires are lit. Fish are cleaned. Dogs bark and chase gulls. The red-threaded man stands by the waterline, his boots wet his eyes far. You approach him, and he finally asks. Well, you smile. I've already left. He smirks. Your braid told me. You sit beside him in the sand and untie the red thread from your wrist. You tie it not as a braid loop, but as a sail lash wrapped around the shaft of a small driftwood piece you found earlier that day. You carve a notch into it, then throw it into the sea. Let the waves decide what part of you floats. That night you braid again. It's looser now, simpler, but heavier with meaning. 2 strands for the choices you've made. 1 for the story that hasn't yet arrived. And the bead in the middle, it gleams in the firelight, as if to say, you're not finished. But you've started. The sea wind wakes you before the light does. It seeps through your cloak and hums along your braid, fluttering the ends ever so slightly, just enough to remind you that you're now in a place without walls. You sit up from your spot in the sand, still wrapped in furs, Kish pressed tight against your side. The others are still sleeping. The tide is low. The boats haven't arrived yet. But today you meet the seeresses. They're not part of the caravan. They came from inland, 3 of them old as driftwood and quiet as snowfall. You heard last night that they arrived without speaking, walked through camp pointed at a single log near the fire pit, and sat. No one asked them to move. No one ever would. They carry small staffs wrapped in fur. Their hair is long streaked with gray and white, twisted into ceremonial ropes bound with dried herbs and stones. Each braid is a library. Not decoration, not defense divination. In Viking society, seeresses weren't just respected, they were feared. It was said that their braids held visions, that you could read the future in the tightness of a knot, the color of a binding string, the direction of a twist. Historians still argue whether these women were truly prophetic or simply wise beyond words. But ask anyone who's ever had their braid touched by a seeress, and they'll tell you something changes. You approach as the sky pinks along the horizon. 2 of the women are preparing a bundle of sage and juniper. The 3rd is combing her braid, not for neatness, but to loosen it for reading. You kneel beside them without a word. The one in the center turns toward you. She nods once, that's all. She reaches forward, gently takes hold of your braid, and lifts it slowly, as if weighing not just the hair, but everything knotted into it. She does not speak. She traces her fingers down the split, stops at the bead, lingers there, then she lets go. You dream at the hinge, she says softly. You blink. The hinge. She points to the center where your braid forks, then rejoins. You carry something that was 2 things now woven together, but still listening in both directions. She plucks something from her pouch, a thin copper ring no wider than a coin, and presses it into your hand. Tie it near the end. Let the future circle back when it's ready. You nod. You do not ask what she means, because that's not how they work. You tie the ring near the end of your braid just above the last knot. It gleams faintly. The firelight catches it. So does the morning. Later the boats arrive. 2 small clinker-built crafts, sails, furled hulls, slick with salt. Their crews are quiet, solemn. They've come from a northern inlet, with word of a temple ruin, a burned-out hall, and whispers of a woman with gold in her braid who passed through days before. The red-threaded man listens to their story with his arms folded. You watch him while coiling rope your braid brushing against your back with every turn. Then you feel her behind you again, one of the seeresses. This time, she doesn't touch your hair. She just whispers, "Wear it forward." And then she leaves. You hesitate. Then you untie your braid, bring it over your shoulder, and rebraid it across your chest. It's awkward at first. You've never worn it this way, public, visible, vulnerable. But that's the point, isn't it? When you walk through the camp again, no one looks confused. They understand. That kind of braid is a signal I'm bearing something. I've received a vision. I might be marked. Or simply, this part of my story isn't behind me anymore. It's in front. You help load supplies onto the boats. You work in silence. And the whole time, your braid rests gently along your heart, swinging slightly with each step. Not hidden, not muted, not undecided, just present. That evening, as the boats sway with the tide and the crew lights fires along the shoreline, you sit near the hull and carve a piece of driftwood with a dull knife. Not a rune, not a name, just a spiral. You tie it to the edge of your bedroll with twine. You lie back and close your eyes. Your braid, still draped across your chest, rises and falls with your breath. You think of the seeress, the copper ring, the word hinge. And as sleep comes, you understand you're not moving in one direction anymore. You're braided into time. And it's starting to move through you. The sea wakes you. Not with crashing waves or storm winds, but with the soft push and pull of tide against hull. Like a mother rocking a child that refuses to sleep. You sit up slowly on the boat's deck cloak pulled around your shoulders, braid still looped forward over your chest. It's become familiar now, the forward braid, the weight of it, the meaning. You touch the copper ring at its end, cold this morning, but steady. Others on the boat stir. The red-threaded man checks the sail. A woman with fishbone earrings rubs warmth into her hands. No one speaks yet. That's the sea's hour. Language feels too loud in this part of the day. You take out your comb and run it gently down the braid. It doesn't need fixing, it just needs acknowledgement. Because the act of tending your hair has become something more than habit. It's reconciliation. A way of saying to yourself, I'm still here. I still belong to this shape, to this thread, to this self. A younger crew member eyes your braid. You carry it like a burden, he says. You smile. It depends on the day. He chuckles and begins to knot his own sloppy wide loops along the top of his scalp. You notice the mistake, but you don't correct him. Everyone learns their style through error, and sometimes pain. By midday, the boats pull into a small cove lined with black rocks and dense pine. A ruined hall stands just beyond the shoreline, collapsed but not empty. Ash, broken stones, a post still upright with a braid nailed to it. You all go still. The red-threaded man steps forward. He doesn't touch the braid, but he looks at it carefully. It's old, frayed by sea, air, and time. But it still holds the shape of something sacred. 3 twists, a coil at the bottom, a single iron ring tucked near the top. I know this style, he murmurs. No one speaks, because this isn't just a marker, it's a message. And in Viking culture, a braid left on a post wasn't always a warning. Sometimes it was a call, a claim, a curse. Historians debate whether such displays were common or symbolic. Was the braid from a fallen warrior, a stolen heirloom, a declaration of war? You feel the truth in your bones. Someone wanted to be seen. You step forward, eyes locked on the ring. It's copper, like yours. The red-threaded man glances at your braid, at the ring, then back at the nailed hair. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. This is a mirror. You're not related, not by blood. But something in you, your path, your hinge, your unspoken questions has aligned with whoever left this braid behind. You kneel, and you rebraid, not your own. You gather the stray strands from the wind, the snapped ends from the post's base, and begin forming them into a shadow braid, a symbolic restoration. Not to claim, but to honor. 3 twists, a loop, no ring, just a knot. You tie it to the base of the post and let it hang beside the old one. You whisper, "Seen," and you walk away. That night, around a small fire in the ruined hall, someone passes a horn of mead. The crew speaks quietly now. Even the sea holds its breath. And you reach back and untie your braid. You do it slowly, thoughtfully. The copper ring drops softly into your palm. You hold it. Then, for the first time since the seeress gave it to you, you remove it. You press it into the palm of the red-threaded man. He looks at you surprised. You say, "I'm ready to carry my own." He nods, then pockets the ring. No ceremony, no applause, just a passing of silence. You spend the rest of the night with your hair loose. Not wild, not defiant, just free. The act of unbraiding tonight isn't surrender. It's return. You lie down on your cloak stars like tiny braids of light across the sky, kish curled against your legs. And for the first time in many nights you sleep with nothing tied and wake with nothing lost. The wind is different in the morning. It comes from the east, now warm and dry, brushing your cheek like a whisper you almost remember. You sit up slowly, blinking away sleep, your hair loose and soft around your shoulders. There's no knot, no pin, no copper, just you. And that somehow feels heavier than any braid you've ever worn. The others are already moving about, rolling up cloaks, stoking the last of the fire, preparing the boats for launch. You see the red-threaded man tightening a strap across a barrel, his eyes meeting yours for only a moment before he nods. Nothing more needs to be said, because something in you changed yesterday. You walked away from a post with another person's braid, and somehow walked further into your own story. You rise, and for the first time in what feels like moons, you don't reach for your comb. You leave your hair untied, not out of grief, not out of rebellion, but because today you will listen without controlling. You'll let the wind decide how your story falls across your back. You sail for most of the day, hugging the jagged coastline, the cliffs rising like old gods to your left, the sea dark and bottomless to your right. The crew is quieter now. Even the young ones speak in softer tones. The ruins changed something in everyone. You sit near the stern, one hand resting on Kish's back, the other threading slowly through your hair, not weaving, just separating, just feeling the texture of what hasn't yet become something. By midday, you dock at a small outpost, a stone ring built on a bluff, mostly used by fisherfolk and weather readers. There's no market here, no village, just a place to wait. The red-threaded man says you'll stop here for 3 days, to resupply, to breathe, to listen. You volunteer to help gather firewood inland. They pair you with a woman named Itis. She wears her hair in a triple braid, long and swinging, bound with green thread. You know the meaning. It's the braid of someone who's lost 2 children but continues to carry. She doesn't speak much, but her presence is grounding. As you walk the forest together, gathering branches and deadfall, you watch how her braid moves, not rigid, not ceremonial. It sways with her stride like it's part of her rhythm. And for the first time you understand something deeper. Some braids are songs. You stop at one point, kneel to pick up a curled birch limb, and your hair falls forward over your shoulder. She sees it, pauses. You don't wear it today. You shrug. I'm listening. She nods. So am I. You walk in silence for a while after that, but it's not awkward. It's shared space. You return to camp in the evening, the fire already burning, low smoke trailing into a sky just beginning to turn gold at the edges. And that's when she says it. When I cut mine, Itis says I didn't feel grief. Not at first. I felt exposed, like the world saw something I hadn't decided to show yet. You glance at her. She continues. But when I grew it back, I tied it differently. Not like before. Because I wasn't like before. You nod slowly. Because you know that feeling too. That sense that when you cut away a part of yourself, you make room for something else. And when it returns on your terms. That night back by the fire, you finally reach for your comb. You run it through your hair slowly, no oil, no cord, just your hands. And you begin a new braid, not one you've worn before, not one someone showed you. A half-back braid starting high but left loose at the end, tied with a short piece of drift cord. It has no meaning in your village. It doesn't follow the patterns of the red-threaded man or Idis or the seeresses, but it feels like yours. You sleep with it that way. No dreams. Just a soft, weightless feeling like the story you've been telling is finally beginning to listen back. The morning comes with mist. Not heavy, not cold. Just a soft curtain that blurs the horizon, makes the boats look like ghosts, makes even familiar faces seem like memories you haven't quite placed. You sit up by the fire. The coals barely warm your hair, still braided half back, loose-ended, still held by the drift cord from the night before. It's held beautifully, and it's yours now. You rise slowly, stretch, and run your fingers down the braid, not to fix it, but to acknowledge it. The knot hasn't slipped. The strands haven't frayed. There's something comforting in that, a reminder that even in a strange place some things hold. The others are stirring now, the smell of broth warming in a blackened pot, Kish nosing through scattered kindling for something edible. You eat quietly, then walk the short bluff trail above the cove, your boots sinking slightly in damp moss. From up here, the mist looks like a second sea hovering over the real one. And you think about what it means to carry your story where others can see it. You remember the woman with the triple braid, the red-threaded man, the seeress, and you wonder how many people chose their braids to be noticed, and how many chose them to be understood. There's a difference. At the top of the bluff, you meet someone new, a quiet man seated alone, etching something into wood with a narrow iron stylus. His hair is completely unbound, but his beard is a masterwork, knotted on one side, woven tight on the other, parted with a central twist that trails down his chest. You sit near him without a word. After a while, he glances over. "That's a calm braid," he says. You chuckle. "Is that bad?" "It means you're ready." "For what?" He shrugs. Whatever's next. He doesn't offer more, but his beard says it for him. Because in Viking custom, the beard could speak even louder than hair. A forked beard could mean pride, a warrior's oath, a mourning vow, or a stubborn refusal to bow. Some grew them long as lifelines, proof that they had survived. Historians often focus on swords and ships, but in some sagas, a man's worth is measured in the care he gives his beard. You sit with him for a while longer. When he finishes his carving, he tosses you a small object, a tiny wooden bead, unpolished, warm from his hand. For the middle, he says, "So your braid knows it has a spine." You thank him, roll the bead between your fingers, and feel something click inside you. You walk back toward camp, the mist parting around your shoulders. There's a gathering near the boats. Something's happening. You arrive to find the red-threaded man standing before the mast, a small bundle in his hands, a lock of hair tied with red string sealed in wax. He raises it for the crew to see. No one knows where the woman with the gold braid went, but this was hers. A murmur. He continues, "We'll place it in the sea, as memory, as marker. So, if she's lost, the waves might still know her name." You watch as he steps into the tide, kneels, and releases it. The wax floats, then melts. The hair drifts apart, carried slowly toward the horizon. You glance down at your own braid, and for the first time it feels like a name. Not your birth name, not your spoken one, but something deeper. A name made of choices, of silences, of knots tied not to hold things in, but to let things move through. That night before sleep, you sit by the fire and add the new bead centered just above the loose end seated beside the older one from the seeress. You don't polish it, you don't mark it. You let it speak for itself, because not every part of your braid needs to be explained. Some parts are just earned. You lie down beside Kish, your back to the waves, your braid tucked forward like a compass. and you rest with the quiet knowledge that tomorrow the wind may change. And when it does, you'll be ready, because your braid already knows which way to go. The next morning you wake to a breeze, not cold, not harsh, but insistent. It pushes against your back like a quiet hand urging you forward. The mist is gone now. The sea is clear, steel blue, and endless. You sit up slowly. Your braid lies across your shoulder, the new bead nestled into place, still warm from your skin. It's held all night, even through dreams. You rise, stretch, and braid it again, not because it needs redoing, but because the act of rebraiding is how you affirm the person who woke up. Some days that person is different than the one who fell asleep. You tie it tighter this time, high and slightly off-center, a subtle angle that says, "I'm watching from the side now," not the front. You glance around the camp. There's movement. The red-threaded man is already organizing gear, loading small crates onto the boats. Others are checking knots, rolling sails, tightening leathers. A journey is about to begin, and no one's pretending it won't be difficult. But there's no fear here. Just preparation. You help with the last of the supplies, your braid swinging slightly as you lift your boots sinking into wet sand. A younger woman from the crew stops you at one point and asks, "What does your braid mean?" You pause, then smile. "Balance," you say. She nods. She's wearing a twin twist tight and mirrored, probably a ritual for a sibling. She doesn't offer the meaning, but she doesn't need to. Braid speak isn't always about answers. Sometimes it's just about being brave enough to wear the question. Before launch, the red-threaded man gathers everyone by the boats. "We'll sail north around the Cape," he says. "After that, we'll decide together." Then he steps back and waits. That's the kind of leader he is. He gives the heading, then lets the crew choose the course. You find your place on the boat Kish, curling up by your feet, the salt wind already working its fingers through the tips of your braid. The sail goes up, the ropes are pulled, and the boat pushes off with a slow, deliberate sigh. The coastline falls away behind you. And ahead, rocks, haze, a channel between two cliffs. You've heard of this place, Splitwater, where the tides run crooked and the wind cuts in every direction. Sailors braid their hair differently here, for luck, for clarity, for endurance. You glance at the others. Some retie theirs mid-voyage. One woman shifts her braid to hang over her heart. Another knots hers into a double ring, a loop within a loop. No one speaks of the change, but you feel it, this shared, silent decision that what's ahead will require a different version of who you've been. You reach for your own braid, loosen it slightly, tighten the base, then wrap the lower end into a spiral coil, the same shape you carved into wood days ago. A quiet callback, a reminder your path isn't straight. It bends, it loops, and it still moves forward. The wind howls as the boat enters the channel. The cliffs rise on both sides. Sea spray soaks your face. Kish growls low, not from fear, just from being overwhelmed. You place a hand on his back. "We're all right," you whisper. The red-threaded man is shouting something now, but it's lost in the roar. You grab the rail. The boat lists hard to port, then rights itself. For a moment, it feels like you're inside a story being rewritten, your bones remembering something your mouth can't describe. Then, just as quickly as it began, the current settles. You pass through, out the other side, and into calm. You lean back, breath-catching braid soaked and heavy against your neck. It held. You held. Everyone did. And now you smile. Because Splitwater didn't break you. It shaped you. That night you sit by a fire on a different shore, drier, warmer, the sky clearer than it's been in days. You unwrap your braid and let it dry in the wind. The spiral still holds at the end. The new bead gleams. You add nothing, change nothing. You just let it be. Because today the braid isn't a warning, or a message, or a code. Today it's a memory. And memory needs no explanation. It only needs to be carried. Morning unfolds slowly on the new shore. The wind is gentler here, no longer urging you forward, just accompanying you like an old friend walking beside you, not ahead. You wake with your braid still intact, a little tangled from salt and sleep, but still holding its spiral shape near the end. You comb it slowly, sitting on a smooth stone warmed by the first light. Kish dozes beside you, twitching in his dreams. You smile as you separate the strands, retwist them, and retie the end with a simple loop. No pin, no bead, no symbol. Just presence. Today you aren't preparing for anything. You're just being. And even that in Viking life is a quiet kind of power. The others are moving too. Cooking washing gear, cleaning out boats. No big decisions. No big ceremonies. But there's a shift in the way people walk. Not as if a burden's been lifted. More like everyone finally knows what it weighs. Later in the day, you walk with the red-threaded man along the ridgeline that curves above the shore. The grass is thick dotted with purple flowers whose names you've never learned. You walk in silence at first. Then he speaks. You braid differently now. You nod. So do you, you reply. He smiles faintly. Mine's not meant to last. Just something to hold until I get home. You glance over. Where's home? He looks away. Don't know anymore. You walk on. Because some braids are like that, temporary anchors. Not declarations, not identities. Just a way to keep yourself from unraveling long enough to reach somewhere new. Down in the valley below, you see a small farmstead. A boy runs through a field with a dog, his short braid bouncing behind him like a loose ribbon. He doesn't look back. He doesn't need to. He's still at the beginning. You remember when you were too. That evening, as you sit by the fire, the red-threaded man brings out a small leather pouch. Inside, pieces of old braids, tied loops, knotted locks, some with beads, some with string, one with a tiny shell tucked inside. He lays them out carefully on the ground. Offerings, mementos, warnings. You don't ask. He gestures toward them. They're all from people I couldn't carry with me. So I carry what they gave me. You study them. Each is different. None of them perfect. One is unraveling at the end like a sentence that no one finished. He slides one toward you, a thin gray plait wrapped with linen at the base. She wore this when she climbed the glacier. Said the wind needed something to read. You nod. You understand. Because sometimes you braid not to carry memory, but to send it. To let the wind take it. To let the cold understand it. To let the gods decide what part of you echoes. You sit with him until the fire burns low. Then quietly, you undo your own braid, just the bottom half. You loosen the spiral. You remove the drift cord. And you tie it to one of the stones near the fire, not as a goodbye, but as a signal. Tomorrow you'll rebraid it, but tonight you want the wind to see what's inside. Kish curls against you. The sea is calm. And your braid. It falls half free down your back, whispering stories it no longer needs to hold tightly. Because some truths once heard can simply rest. You wake with half your braid undone, the drift cord gone, the loose strands fluttering softly in the wind. The stone where you left it still rests near the fire pit, undisturbed. But you feel different now, not because something was taken, but because something was given. A little weight released, a little silence spoken. You sit quietly, running your fingers through the loose half of your hair. No one watches. No one asks. That's the thing about Viking life. The braid tells the story so you don't have to. And this morning your half-braid says, I'm in the middle of a becoming. You finish combing. Then you braid again. Not the same style. This time you weave a loop into the center, not at the top or the end, but woven through the middle. It doesn't serve any practical function, but it feels like a pause, a breath, a space left open for something you haven't met yet. You knot it off with a new piece of flax cord from your pouch, coarse and pale, like memory that hasn't yet faded. Later that day, you walk the shoreline with a few others searching for dry driftwood to repair the prow of one of the boats. The storm 2 nights ago cracked part of the hull, and while it's not urgent, it's important. You walk with a woman named Irsa. Her braid is short and tied flat against her head, almost invisible. She lost her son to fever last year and hasn't worn her hair long since. She notices your new style. That loop, she says. Is it for someone you pause? Not yet. She nods. That's the best kind. You continue walking, collecting wood. Kish sniffs the edges of the rocks, stopping now and then to bark at the occasional crab. When you return, you help mend the prow, pressing flax caulking into the seams, wrapping soaked rope, hammering in small patient taps. Every time your braid swings forward into your line of vision, you feel it not as a distraction, but as a presence. It grounds you. Not like armor, like shadow, like witness. That evening there's a fire, a song, and a story offering a tradition where each person leaves something behind. It can be a word, a carved token, a tied knot, a bit of food. You have none of those, but you do have your braid. You untie it again, not all of it, just the loop. Carefully, you pull it out from the center and tie it around a small stick, then press it into the sand near the fire. It doesn't say much, but everyone sees it, and no one asks, because they know. They've all left parts of themselves behind, 2 curled bits of twine fish bones etched with names, tiny scraps of cloth. This isn't mourning. It's marking. Not endings, not beginnings, just the space in between. When the fire burns low and the stars stretch wide overhead, you braid again, this time without a loop, without a bead, without tension. You tie it plain, straight, calm, and in that act you feel something seal. Not a door closing, but a room completing. You lie down with Kish beside you, his body warm against your side. Your braid presses against your shoulder, still damp from sea air. And tonight, you sleep knowing you've carried grief. You've untied memory. You've looped hope into silence, and now you're learning how to wear peace. Dawn arrives, not with light, but with birdsong. A slow ripple of sound from the trees above, as if the branches themselves are waking, whispering, shaking off the dark. You open your eyes, the fire beside you long gone to ash. Kish is already up, sitting by the water nose lifted to the breeze. You reach for your braid automatically, an old habit, but now something gentler. You untie the end, letting it loosen just slightly, then retie it softer. Not because it came undone, but because you want it to breathe with you. You sit for a long while near the shore. The tide is low, the air is warm, and for the first time you feel still. Not paused, not delayed. Just here. There's movement in camp. Quiet packing. Laughter. A song hummed low. The red-threaded man passes behind you, gives your braid a nod, an unspoken greeting. His own is now a simple twist, no thread. No knot, just held together by the weight of what's been learned. You stand, stretch, and begin helping with the boat. It's nearly time to turn inland. This journey has always been temporary. But the changes, those come with you. That afternoon you walk one last time along the bluff. The sky is high and blue, the wind playful. You take out your comb but don't use it. Instead, you tuck it into your belt like a keepsake rather than a tool. You reach a small stone cairn, one of many along this coast left by travelers before you. People who camped, who hunted, who braided their lives into the same rhythm you're now learning to hear. You kneel, take a short strip of your old drift cord, and tie it around one of the stones. A gesture, a thank you, a signal for the next who pass. You look to the sea. It doesn't call you today, and that's all right. You turn inland. The path winds between moss-covered rocks and silver pines. It's softer here, the earth giving slightly under your boots, your braid brushing the collar of your cloak with each step. You run your fingers along the knot at its end. You know how to tie it now without thinking. You know what it means, and more importantly, you know what it doesn't have to mean. You pass a hunter on the trail. She wears her hair in a series of tiny braids pulled back and tied at the crown, lightweight, efficient, sharp. She glances at yours and gives a respectful nod, not because it's better, not because it's bolder, but because it's yours. You nod back and walk on. That evening you reach a small settlement, inland smoke rising from clay chimneys, children running barefoot, goats wandering like they own the place. You're greeted with quiet smiles, a pot of stew, a place by the fire. You offer help. They hand you a bowl instead. You've come far, someone says, seeing the salt still clinging to your boots. You nod, a little. An old man beside the hearth looks at your braid, looks like it has a long story. You smile. Some of it's true. He chuckles. That's all stories. You eat, you laugh, you settle in. And later, when the fire dims and sleep tugs at your eyes, you don't untie your braid. You let it rest. You let it stay. Because tonight it doesn't need adjusting or explaining. It just needs to be with you. And in the hush of that firelit room, your head resting on your pack, Kish curled at your feet. You sleep with the softest truth braided into every strand. You left as someone looking for a story. You return as someone who became one. Later, you walk through the trees beyond the huts. The sun is higher now. The light filters through branches in quiet golds. You find a stump at the edge of a stream and sit. You wake beneath a roof this time. A simple timber ceiling darkened by smoke, warmed by early sunlight slipping through the shutter cracks. The fire has died to coals. The scent of stew still lingers in the air. Kish stretches beside you, already half-awake, tail thumping softly against the floor. You sit up slowly, and without even thinking, your hand finds your braid. It's there, calm, quiet, complete. No fray, no tangle, just held. You run your fingers along the length of it, pausing at the driftwood bead. Then the copper ring. Then the place where the spiral used to be, now simply folded memory. You untie it, but not to change it, just to feel what it has become. Each movement is gentle, deliberate. This isn't grooming anymore, it's remembering. You comb it out slowly, then rebraid in silence. No new flourishes, no new symbols. Just the same motion you've known since you were small, now fuller. Quieter, wiser. Yours. Outside, the village stirs. A woman sweeps her doorway with a birch broom. A boy leads goats past the gate, his hair tied in a high twist, messy but proud. The world is still going, and so are you. This place isn't home, but it's not foreign either. You've become someone who carries home within the braid. You reach into your satchel and find the old pin, the ashwood one, smooth, familiar. You press it once more into the braid, not to hold it but to mark it, like a punctuation mark at the end of a long, winding sentence. Then you rise and walk, not because you're seeking anything, but because you know now every step continues the braid. Every silence adds to its pattern. Every moment of presence becomes part of what's carried next. You hear laughter behind you. Someone has started a song. And as the sound drifts through the trees, you let your braid swing over your shoulder forward once more, not as a shield or a flag or a vow, but as a gentle reminder that you were here, that you chose, that you carried, and that your story is still being woven. One strand at a time. Now, let the world fade just a little. Let the rhythm of breath slow and the weight of your thoughts loosen like the last twist of a braid falling free at day's end. There is nothing more to carry right now. Nothing to prove. Nothing to decide. The sea has quieted. The fire has dimmed. And the voices, the ones braided into memory, have grown still and soft. You can rest now. You've wandered through forests and fjords, knotted strands of grief and growth, and come home wearing something only you could create. You've sat beside seeresses. You've stood beneath stormed skies. You've felt the cut of silence and the comfort of presence, and in it all your braid held. Through storms, through shifts, through seasons. Let that braid now lie beside you, a warm weight against your shoulder, a gentle echo of who you've been and who you're still becoming. Let your body be heavy now. Let your thoughts be light. And if dreams come, may they come softly carried on the same wind that once read your story across the surface of the sea. Good night, friend, and sweet, sweet dreams.